Jason, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
I'm pretty casual. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. I'm actually doing better now that I get to talk to you. You are an insanely entertaining dude and a man who has worn many hats throughout his life, and many hats that take quite a bit of individual skill to get decent at. So, thank you so much for the time today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I just got a cowboy hat, so that's my next thing. I want to be a cowboy.
What kind of cowboy hat?
A horse. Oh, what kind of cowboy hat did I get?
Stetson?
It's a Stetson. Wait, can you get it? I got a girlfriend. She's got a horse, and now I ride horses. And I got the same hat as her, but it's a black one instead of a white one, so that we don't look like we're brother and sister. Because that'd be weird. You know what I mean?
It just depends where you are in America as to whether that's weird or not.
Well,
Oh, that's a
when
sharp
I
looking hat.
She taught when I bought the hat, she's like, "You got cowboys put it on like this. They put it on the front and then they do that." So I already know how to put a hat on. But yeah, this is what I'm going to wear this in Texas. And I got cowboy boots that I bought a long time ago when I was rich, and they're like expensive. I think they're snakeskin, and I bought them as a joke, and now I'm sincerely wearing them all the time.
You look like a natural putting that hat on, and you look like a
Right.
natural with it on too.
And I was just learning how to line dance in the backyard right before I did this.
How'd that go? Because that's not easy.
Uh, well, I'm a professional athlete. I think we discussed this earlier in this conversation. I'm excellent.
You're excellent, even though you're accident prone. I've heard you tell others that you're accident prone. I feel like there's that line dancing is rife for accidents.
Wait, I don't think from what I usually do with my life, line dancing's pretty safe. I think I'm okay. Did I make a few mistakes? Yes, but I don't think that requires going to hospital for any of my faulty steps.
That's fair. Where does doing stand-up comedy rank amongst the scariest stuff that you've done in your life?
That's funny because like now it's you know, I mean, because I've got some confidence and I'm doing a lot better at it. But I think the first I got thrown in pretty hard. I was doing open mics for about a year at this place called the Dime Bar, and it was usually 4 to 6 people, and most of the people in the room were comics just waiting to laugh because you're bombing. And then I just got a 10-minute set, and I'm friends with a comedian named Ryan Sickler who was like, "Hey man, I heard you've been doing some stand up. Are you ready to do a show?" And of course, I just said yes, regardless of whether I was ready or not. And then he had me appear with him at Brea Improv, which is 600 people. And before I went on stage behind the curtain, I remember thinking my knees were shaking. And I was like, why are my knees shaking? Am I cold? And I started like doing some shadow boxing to try to get my knees to not shake. And I was like, wait a minute, am I nervous? And I fought Shane Carwin, who at the time I may or may not have been on steroids. He was 300 pounds and he was not playing. He really wanted to knock me out. And I kind of knew that because I wasn't trying to knock him out, that I knew I was going to get knocked out tonight. And I was pretty nervous, but I was more nervous when I walked out to that microphone than I've ever been. And then the next day, Whitney Cummings texted me and said, I saw you did stand up with Ryan Sickler. Do you want to do a show with me? And I was like, yes. And then it was a theater, 1,300 people. And it was the second time I'd ever done stand up in front of a crowd. And it was 1,300 people in a theater. And she invited Tony Hawk. So now I've got one of my best friends watching me on the sidelines while I'm in front of 1,300 people. And I don't even really know, I can't even really memorize my set yet. I'm just hoping that I remember the jokes. And that I thought that I was going to faint. I thought at one point, just get your hand to the microphone. Don't faint. And can the people in the theater see my knees shaking? And that went on for at least a year, where every time I was going to do a show, I would become very cold. And it was Brian Callen that said, are you about to go up? And I was like, yeah, why? And he's like, because you've got a jacket on. Every time you're about to go up, you put a jacket on. And I was like, yeah, because I get cold. This place is cold. He's like, it's not cold, dude. And that's when I realized that I got so nervous that I changed temperature for a year straight. So now it's okay. But I don't remember ever being frozen before a skateboard contest or before a fight or before racing cars. So I would say comedy was for sure the most nerve wracking thing that I've done in my life.
So doing those shows with Sickler, whose Honeydew podcast is great, by the way, and then Whitney, that was about a year ago.
No, that was 3 years or two.
I think that was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 years. It was probably like 4 years ago. It's right when I started. I've been doing stand up for almost 5 years now, I think.
Okay, I was about to say because I feel like I saw an ad from a couple of days ago, or I think it was Jason Ellis and friends, and one of the friends is a guy who's nice enough to join me from time to time, fellow Armo, and one of my favorite comedians,
Sam
Sam
Tripoli.
Tripoli. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tripoli was at that show too. So
Yeah.
clearly you're not as cold when you're getting on stage now, especially at a smaller comedy club versus that 1,500 seat venue.
Yeah, no, I was warm that day. But Sam was the first person when I had the satellite radio show who tried to get me to do stand up. And I was like, I don't want to. And he was like, you'd be really funny. And I went up with no material and didn't do well. And I was like, see, I told you I'm not like that. And then years later, because that was probably 6 years ago, maybe more, where I did it a couple times just because Sam was like, I want you to do the show. And I was like, okay. And I refused to memorize anything. It sounded like I didn't understand that comedians refine their jokes. I just thought that you went up and you were funny or you weren't, and that's the end of it. And then when I got let go from Sirius XM, I went and started watching and was like, oh, you say the same thing over and over again. Crazy. And that's when I actually started to write a joke for, I think it was at least a year before Brian had me come up, but
Mm.
it was about
Now
how
do you write regularly as you're trying to work on whatever the amount of time is and the material that you're adding to that set too?
yeah, I'm pretty illiterate, so writing is not a good thing for me, but I do write stuff, but it's more in my head. I have a lot of stories, a lot of life experiences. The more I tell them, the more I'm able to see which parts are funny and what aren't, shortening things and adding things. And now it's like, I go to the airport, I find a joke in the airport. I go to a town and I find a joke in the town. I go skate, I find a joke in the skating, or now I think of old stories that I've told before where I go, oh wow, that could actually be a joke. So now that whole thing has now I've become a little bit of a joke writer. I would say that's the worst part of I'm a very good storyteller. I'm very good off the cuff and riffing, and like when it comes to just writing jokes, that's the thing that I think I'm very fresh at, and that's getting better now because now I'm on the road and headlining and doing actual shows. I'm usually doing like 20 minutes off the cuff at the start, and some of those things that I'm doing, I go, wow, that was actually pretty funny. I could turn that into a joke as well. So it's just like everything else. Like now that I get to do actual shows all the time, I've become so much better. And it's so just every time I go up now and the confidence. Because if I'm like, because I've got a set, I've got jokes, and then I look at the clock and I go, wait, did I just do 20 minutes on like this girl in the front row and being in Portland, Oregon? I did. Like, that's pretty cool. Everyone's really laughing. Like, that was pretty cool. And you didn't even write that down. So I think having that confidence and being able to riff, because that's the radio chops. I think that there was a time there where I would always take phone calls and try to be funny with the caller. And now I get to see your face. I get to see your pants. I get to like work on a whole bunch of other stuff. It makes it a lot easier. So yeah, I've just been growing every weekend, man. I feel like I get stronger.
Yeah, Seinfeld has said before that whatever the skill is that you're practicing, however many years you are into that skill is what your age is. So you're 5 years in, you're like a 5-year-old figuring that language out, and you're really starting to figure your voice out right now, which is cool to go along with that natural storytelling ability.
Right. And I think the lucky thing is I did radio for 20 years and now I'm able to tap into that radio skill while being on stage. So it's definitely speeding up the process because I didn't know it, but I've been practicing a certain kind of comedy for a long time.
All right, so as far as the stand-up is concerned, Jason, you are actually headlining at Cap City Comedy Club tomorrow night with a couple of other really funny people in front of you, Rachel Wolfson and Uncle Laser. Have
Yes.
you had a chance to do much stand-up in Austin in the past?
Not really. I did kill Tony where I was like thought I was gonna go as a guest, and Tony goes, "If you got 1 minute," and I was like, "No, why are you asking me that?" And he's like, "Because I thought you were gonna do 1 minute." I'm like, "No, I thought you just wanted me to come up and talk." And he's like, "Oh, okay, you can talk." So I did a little bit of an interview, and I don't have a 1 minute joke. I do now, thanks to being on that show where I was like, "You should definitely write a 1 minute joke." But my stuff was a lot of storytelling. So Tony was nice enough to help me after being on the show with a technique to write little jokes. He's like, "If you have little jokes, you can put them in between your long jokes." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that is good advice." So not a lot of stand up in Austin. Wait, did I do one show there?
You did Vulcan.
Oh, I did Vulcan, and that was after my best friend's funeral, and I bombed because
Oh,
I wanted to cry the whole time. But now I'm very happy and I'm ready to go.
what were your impressions of the Comedy Mothership? It's obviously gotten a lot of love, and we're not going to take away from the fact that you're at Cap City Comedy Club tomorrow night.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever be in a position to be hating on anybody's comedy club, but I think everybody's good, and anybody who wants to let me in is also really good. And I remember being there watching Kill Tony, and it was awesome. And Cap letting me be there, and having like the Uncle Lasers and Rachel Wolfson there. I'm just excited to be there. I used to go to Austin a lot because of I was sponsored by On It. So I used to go there and do some shows, the radio shows there. So I've always liked that place. I like barbecue. I like the lake. I like that place.
Is there a barbecue place that stands out to you, or are they all pretty much good?
I forgot the name. Is the one that I went with Tony Hawk, and that's how now I'm cool because I went with Tony Hawk, and the owner was like, Tony Hawk,
Terry
so
Blacks.
what?
Terry Blacks.
Terry Blacks.
That place is
I'm
solid.
I'm linked, but I'm not really. Do you know what I mean? Like that. Like I can go there and probably get some free meat because I know Tony Hawk. It's the best I can do.
So speaking of your broadcasting career, you were doing a version of what you were doing on Sirius XM a few years ago with the show that you have on Patreon, Awesome World. People can go to patreon.com/EllisMate and pay $10 a month to hear you go uncensored like you used to on the Sirius XM show, and also get some bonus content on the Jason Ellis show and just some other random stuff kicking around your head, huh?
Well, the Jason Ellis show is still on there. I do 3 Jason Ellis shows a week, and then I do Awesome World as well. So I do 4 shows on there a week, and it's $15 a month. And then that also has all the archives from all my old satellite days that is on there as well.
Uh,
And Hawk versus Wolf, the podcast. So I do 5 shows a week.
People think that's a lot in the podcasting world, but you're essentially a radio guy, so you're used to that schedule.
Yeah, people go, "Whoa, 5 shows a week," and I go, "I used to do 5 shows a week for 4 hours a day by myself." So having guests and having a co-host or having more than one co-host, and that the shows go for an hour, it's light work, really.
Do you like going without commercial breaks, or do you prefer the commercial breaks sometimes?
I don't like commercials.
Screw commercials. Just keep the long form conversation going.
I like money, don't get me wrong, but I don't like stop interrupting me. You know what I mean? Like I was in the middle of something. Shut up. I'll do the commercial before or after. I just want to keep talking.
Yep.
And I've hit my head so many times. If you interrupt me, I forgot what I was talking about.
That's a problem. That's a problem for me at 46, and I haven't hit my head a bunch. So I can only imagine what adding concussions to the equation does.
Maybe it's just because I'm old. I can't tell.
One of the two. So the Olympics are going on right now. Skateboarding back in the Olympics. I've seen some criticisms that people aren't exactly crazy with what the Olympics is doing with skateboarding. What do you think about that?
What's the complaint? Which bit are we complaining about?
Oh gosh, people complain about everything. I just think that they're complaining that there's not enough action, there's not enough diversity in terms of the types of things that the skaters are being asked to do. I don't know. What's your read on it?
I mean, to me personally, I don't I don't understand why vert isn't in it. Like I saw synchronized uh diving. No disrespect, but
A little bit of disrespect.
yeah, okay, okay. Here you go. Who cares? It sucks. There you go. There's my full disrespect. Bird skating is 1,000 times better. Screw your synchronized diving game. I don't care. Nobody cares. Stop it. Bring vert back. I want to compete for Australia.
I heard you once call kangaroos horse rats, which I think is such a lovely description. You have a favorite memory or a least favorite memory involving kangaroos, considering that you grew up in Australia?
I used to drink a lot, so this is not me now. But one time, someone said, "I dare you to tackle a kangaroo." So I did, and yeah, he wasn't very happy about it, and he tried to kill me. Um, the kangaroos, depending on your kangaroo, you got your average kangaroos, and they're like 4 foot tall, and they're like kind of gray, and they're pretty cool. They're kind of like those are the ones where it's sort of like more of a rat dog or a rat deer. But then you've got red kangaroos, and red kangaroos are 7 foot tall, and they've got a vein in their bicep, and they're horse rats. It's a horse. It's got a big, long nose. It's a horse. It's got big, dark horse eyes, and they know that they're stronger than you. So if you come up near them, they look at you like there must be something wrong with you, mate, because I'm going to kick your ass. So that was the one that I bumped into, and I was going to tackle it, but when I got up close, he looked at me like, you probably shouldn't do that. So I sobered up on the way in and kind of gave him a bit of a shoulder block, and he bumped me back off, and then he chased me into the bushes, and all my friends laughed at me.
How close did he get to catching you?
I think he was more just making me go away. I think if he wanted me, he could have. But it's if you show your back, they can't grab onto you and do the thing where they stand on their tail and like throw their back legs into your stomach. So if you're running, it's kind of like me. If you run from me in a fight, I'm not going to attack you because you've already given up. I don't want to beat you up, but if you're coming at me, I'm going to switch you off. That's kind of how it works.
Hmm.
One time I rode a motorcycle and a herd. Wait, what's the correct? I don't know what it's called. Oh, it's called a gang, I think. A
Gang of kangaroos?
No, a mob. It's called a mob of kangaroos. I was on a track and a mob of kangaroos went through the bush, through the track, back into the bush. So at one point I was in a mob of kangaroos, like 100 on a two-stroke, a YZ80 when I was like 12. And then one of them hit a tree as it went into the bush again, and I locked up my bike because I was like, it died because it was running like 40 mile an hour, and it just bounced off the ground and got back up and ran off. So you don't want to mess with kangaroos, man. They're diesel.
I've had kangaroo before. Tastes decent enough.
You gotta. I don't want to. Yeah, okay. Maybe I did that too, but these days I let them live. They're my countrymen, and I have nothing but respect for my fellow countrymen.
Wait a second. Isn't kangaroo eaten in Australia, though? Isn't it common?
Well, I'm American, so I don't know what you're talking about.
So as you
Can't
mentioned,
you tell by my hat?
yeah, exactly. I mean, look, you look like a badass. You pull that off better than I do. I've lived in Texas for all but 6 years of my 46 years on this planet. So kudos to you on that, I guess.
Yeah, it's all a facade.
So you know what? Perception is reality, as they say. You mentioned this earlier that you are mostly illiterate, and while people may take that as tongue in cheek, and it is a little bit tongue in cheek, you were actually a little bit illiterate until the age of 40. You have a couple of best-selling books that have come out since then. I feel like one came out around the time that you started to read. How does that work?
Yeah, the first book was a New York Times best-selling book, and I never read it, but people tell me that it's good, so I'll take your word for it. But yeah, I just told the story to my co-host and he wrote it down because he is an educated man and that's how we work together. And he understands my storytelling and wrote it out the way that I would have written it if I could do that. And then everybody seemed to really like that. But if it wasn't for satellite radio and then making me do live reads, I probably still wouldn't be able to do it. I still can't really spell. So like when I write down jokes, it's in a little bit Morse code. Like my spelling, I can make sense of it. And I think most people, if you look at it, you're like, oh, I think I know what he's trying to spell there. But I'm still really bad at spelling. But I am able to read. I think also social media, like reading people's, like reading like someone's talking about a skateboard trick or UFC's talking about some other thing. Just it was a weird thing where at one point I was told I was stupid, so I just believed it and I gave up. And then from my passions in life, there was reading that was required to gather more information. Next thing you know, I know how to read. And I was like, wait a minute. I think I just like never bothered to do it. And if I had of, then I would have had that ability the whole time. So yeah, now I can read stuff. I can read books and all the stuff that normal people can do.
What's your favorite book?
Man, I don't really like books like that. I like LT's. I like the LT book about his life because he says he smoked crack and he played in the Super Bowl. And I was like, that's
Lawrence Taylor. Yeah, he's one of the most entertaining people in the history of sports. I can understand why you like that memoir.
I didn't even follow football, but that dude's cool.
Yeah. All right. Last thing now, Jason. You are performing stand-up at Cat City Comedy Club tomorrow night. Just double checking my facts there with Rachel Wolfson and Uncle Laser. What do you love about stand-up?
Oh, I mean, I love making people laugh, man. I love being entertaining. I love that. I mean, I talk about stuff that is my life and things that some people probably wouldn't admit about themselves, and I see people have a reaction, and then I sort of convince them to come over to my side and understand it from a different perspective by using it, by telling it in a funny way. So it's like, not only do I get people to laugh, but I think I also get people to be more understanding of what it's like to be in other people's shoes in life. And that is a big deal to me. So yeah, it's an adrenaline rush. It's like I feel like I've conquered. I'm nervous. I'm worried that it's not going to work. And then it all works out. Even if it doesn't, then that's the price you pay too. But it's just super fulfilling. And when it goes bad, I don't have to go to hospital. So that's probably one of my most favorite things about stand-up comedy is no matter how bad I am at it, I never go to the emergency room because I was getting super sick of that shit.
He is Jason Ellis, going to be at Cap City Comedy Club tomorrow night, 8 o'clock show. Rachel Wolfson and Uncle Laser opening for him. Go to capcitycomedy.com to grab tickets for that, or check out where Jason is going to be across the country at his website, thejasonellis.com, and give him a follow on Instagram at Wolfmate. Jason, thank you so much for the time today, man. Real pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
If you're still watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or elsewhere, would greatly appreciate you. Subscribe if you have not already, and please do like today's episode and leave a comment as well if you don't mind. Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. And thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. Talk to you next time on Books on Pod.